Hello, everyone. We are now live with the AI for Hospitals workshop that I have prepared with AI for Health and our amazing speakers today. The goal of this workshop stems directly from our moonshot sessions that we had just an hour ago with all our amazing speakers, and also from our barometer of the adoption of AI in hospitals. The goal here is that in 2020, we carried out the barometer of AI adoption in hospitals in Belgium and figured out that the vast majority of the 98% of Belgian hospitals that participated in our barometer are very enthusiastic about the AI as a very positive development within the health field. But AI is not perceived as a structural, strategical objective within hospital environments. And this is why today we are gathering up with people from hospital management teams to think about and inspire you about what AI can do within hospitals. And for this, we have gathered amazing speakers.
I'm the CEO and co-founder of Sagacify, where Sagacify is a company specialized in deploying projects and helping our customer benefiting from AI. And so we indeed specialize in helping companies identify all the latent opportunities that are there that they could go get, all the way to the deployment and production of those systems, so that companies can benefit and get the value out of those systems. And so not only am I gonna, this inspirational speech is a premise to the workshop that Giovanni mentioned, in which we're going to help you with a methodology that has been proven to be quite successful to identify all the opportunities within your hospitals to help improve its organization. And if it works out, then we're going to give you the keys also to benefit from it. But before I start, I'd like to start with this slide. I'm not sure in 2022 if it's still necessary. Please tell me so in the chat if you think that it's like overdue. But to clear it out, I'm going to just explain. To me, what is AI and what we need to remember is that we didn't wait for artificial intelligence to automate tasks. And if you want to automate tasks in your hospitals, chances are that you have been deploying a whole lot of programs and computer softwares to do so. But the difference between a computer program traditionally and artificial intelligence is that a computer program, you need to write instructions that are telling the computer what to do to execute a task. That works fine until you run into very complex tasks that either have to process so much data that you cannot identify all the possible outcomes, or because the data are semantically too complex, like images, speech, time series, text, and so forth. And Software 2.0 or artificial intelligence is being taught in a different way, as I just mentioned. Instead of writing instruction telling the computer what to do, you just teach the computer what it has to understand to be able to reproduce a task. So you don't define the rules anymore, you let it learn the rules. Voilà, that's it. And so basically you can get like, definitely we make huge use of the latest technology in the sphere of artificial intelligence, which is deep learning, which basically helps you treat and take as input any kind of signals that you might find, whether there are images, multimodal images, text, speech, time series from ECG, or open data, or all the also structured data that you might find in your hospitals. And so the opportunities are endless, because all the signals that a human is treating to make his decision can potentially also be fed into an AI system to help you automate decisions or define an outcome, such as early detection of sepsis, for example, to identify pathogens or like labels in medical imagery, to identify anomalies in your hospital processes, and so forth. So you need to really keep in mind that AI is just a mathematical function that maps an input, whichever it is, to an output, which most of the time is a decision to help you make a decision, or just simply by automating a task. And so if I want to summarize the advantages of AI is that it can work with today semantically very complex data. So there is no limit in the kind of signal that you can use. And that opens up basically all the tasks that us as human are doing, like all the tasks relying on the perception that we do with our ears, eyes, and then our capacity to read. It can analyze a huge amount of volume in no time. Let's say that you need to analyze a whole library of scientific publication on the particular disease and all the treatment associated to it. That's a ground for personalized treatment, for example, something that no human could do. And also, all the processes that are being automated by AI are systematically very consistent and precise in their decision. There is no bias. They don't get tired. There is not the effect of one person taking a decision versus another. So in a sense, it's more deterministic. And also, it improves over time. Like, it's not because you deploy your system in production for the first time that it stops learning. So it is going to keep learning over time, improving itself. And in a way, it helps you capitalize on the knowledge that you feed to the system and improving your assets. There is a question about no bias. There is, at the end of this speech, there is sometimes for Q&A, and there is definitely a lot to say about biases. So feel free to ask a question later. And so indeed, as Giovanni mentioned, if we consider on the left side of this slide, the layout of the hospital organization, you might wonder, but how can a hospital benefit from AI? So this is, I'm not going to spend too much time because I'm going to repeat what Giovanni said, but at every level of the organization of a hospital, from the patient admission to the patient journey through all the services and all the back office services that are necessary to support the operations, well, AI can help you be more efficient, reduce the costs, and in the end, help treat patients better and faster. Also, maybe I forgot to mention that Sagacify is not solely focusing on the hospital and the healthcare industry. We're multi-sectorial by nature. We've been working on more than 40 AI projects that we've been deploying in production. So we know our job extremely well. And we know what it takes to deploy a system successfully in production. So this is why we think that we can still help hospitals figure out what to do and ensuring that they are successful. And so one example here, it's an invoice anomaly detection system. So before an invoice is sent to a patient, we make sure that the invoice doesn't contain errors so that the patient is not charged uselessly or fraudulently, and also that there hasn't been any mistake in the hospital system, like forgetting a bunch of invoice that might not have been sent, that might never have been sent. And the little spiking in the little red bars are correspond to the COVID outbreak in the March 2020 in the system. You could see that it still picked up a lot of anomalies. So this is just one tiny example of a process that you can drastically optimize so that people don't have to think about it all the time, and they can free up some time to do something else. Which is basically what my slides here is saying, is that why hospital need AI, if I want to summarize it. You can definitely free hospital staff from administrative tasks so that they have more time to focus on the patient. Obviously, you can reduce the cost, and down the line, help treat patient better and faster. There is definitely a way today to provide a new patient experience compared to the old way of doing things. And so if hospitals don't embrace those potential technologies that can contribute to creating a new patient experience, they might lag behind and create a long-lasting delay in trying to catch up if you don't start too early enough. So this sounds very interesting, like the left side of the picture. In theory, it looks cool, but in practice, it's known to be extremely difficult to deploy in production and successfully, and also ensuring that it generates the expected value an AI system in production. And so many have tried, because everybody knows that AI techniques are powerful. Everybody knows that they need it, but also most of them who tried failed. There is a statistic saying that only 15% of companies who have tried working on AI project have actually been successful at deploying it in productions. So you need, it's not enough to just have an experienced AI team to succeed. You need this, but you need a methodology, and you need experience. And so I think that it's not. It's something to pay attention. And so I'm going to talk about some things to try to avoid that. First of all, one piece of advice: start small. So after this workshop, I'd like you to start thinking about what is potentially problematic in your organization, so that when we see each other, like in, let's say, 2 months, for example, you would already come to the workshop with precise ideas that we can discuss together. So don't waste any time to start like talking to colleagues and start some discussion groups, so that you come armed with many questions and potential. When I say start small, it's better to be successful than to be valuable if it's the first AI project that you start, because you need to create because success will create momentum, it will create visibility, it will create buy-in into your organization, and then thanks to that buy-in, you're going to get more support to successfully embark into a series of successful AI projects. Because if you are constantly too ambitious too soon, too complex, and if you fail, it's going to be more harder to keep going. And also start small, start fast, because if you're successful after 6 months, then after a year you have a first AI project working in production. If you start something that takes too long, well, then you're just going to take too long overall. Start small, but definitely with a long vision in mind, as the picture on the left shows. Okay, some pre-misconception. AI used to be dedicated only for the big internet giant companies who can benefit from millions of data points coming from all the visitor on their websites, which is not the case of hospitals. Hospitals have probably like only sometimes 50 or 100 data points instead of millions, as only a set of data to be able to do something interesting. Well, it used to be the case that you needed that much data. Today, it's not the case anymore. Today, we're talking more about small data, and with data-centric approach, as long as your data are of high quality, you can already extract a huge amount of value. And you could already start working with only 50 data points or 100 images, for example, if you wanted to build a first radiology system, for example. Also, AI used to be expensive or sometimes complicated to deploy in production. That was definitely the case a few years ago, when I just said it was like reserved only for the internet giants who had millions of data points, but also hundreds of the best AI engineers around the world. And so obviously they were able to generate a huge amount of business value out of the system. Today, we know that all hospitals combined could hugely benefit from AI. Like the economy of scale of the value that AI could bring for hospitals is huge. But sometimes, due to the fact that hospitals have their own different electronic medical record system, they have their own equipment, they have their own data points, we don't have that scale. And so even if it's beneficial for all hospitals combined, implementing it at each and every hospital separately could still end up costing a lot of money. And so to prevent this, by ensuring that, as the previous slide showed, that you can collect high quality data to allow learning on smaller data, that you also put domain experts in the front line in direct collaboration with the AI experts, and you put the domain experts in control of the data and the data engineering, you can start generating a lot of value. Obviously, in terms of costs, it's by using the latest tools like MLOps platform that facilitate the transition between a POC and a production project, that basically automates all the tasks that are necessary to put in place an AI project, can you drill down the costs, reduce the cost quite a lot. And so if you combine high quality data, putting domain experts in the front as like main principal actors of a project and using the latest tools, to me, you can generate value with a smaller amount of money and a smaller amount of data. Obviously, but also there is a question I see more and more that's, I'm losing control of my slides there. That's the notion of federated learning. Definitely, as I mentioned, hospitals sometimes don't have a choice to build their own AI systems because interoperability of data is something that's very hard because of the dependency of the equipment and the processes and systems. But there is this notion that still, in addition to the local AI systems that are being deployed, different AI systems could collaborate cross hospitals and feed each other to improve their quality and also improve the performance. So this is something interesting that I'm curious about, is that sometimes the price is too high. If you don't have enough data, there's still this notion that you can try collaboration between hospitals to reduce the cost and increase the amount of data. A notion that's extremely important to know is that it's also like expressed by a famous British statistician, is that he said all models are wrong, but some are useful. My interpretation of this is that no AI model will be 100% accurate. There is always a probability that it will make a mistake, just like a human would do. And so you need to integrate the fact that your AI system might be wrong into the design of your system so that it can be useful. And I'm going to explain how we do. So let's say that you're super happy, you had a POC, and you build an AI model that you want to deploy in production. Depending on the case, there is always a risk linked to a decision that an AI model has made. If it's an AI model to detect whether or not there is a potential error in an invoice, nobody's going to die if it makes a mistake. And so the cost of a mistake is fairly low. And if the confidence is quite high, you can make decision, you don't need human feedback in between. On the other hand, if the cost of a mistake is very high and the confidence is low, then definitely you can't automate the decision. You need to go for human validation. And basically, as long as and you can also walk the fine line between the two and ask human feedback from time to time. So what I'm saying here is that, you could go through full-on straight-through processing if high confidence, low error cost. But most of the time, when it touches like human, there is an impact on human. The cost of an error is very high. So you need to provide the prediction or the potential output for validation into a user interface that not only going to explain very precisely what it has found and why it made that decision, so that the human can very quickly investigate and validate whether or not the AI system made a mistake or was right. This is extremely important because not only will it feed back the human correction to the system so that the AI model can improve, but also statistically speaking, you will be able to know the true performance of the system, and hopefully you'll see it improving over time. So here, there's really a possibility, the capacity for AI models to help physician or administrative staff to only focus on the prediction that require their help, hoping that most of them will still have enough confidence to go into straight-through processing, and you'll capitalize on the knowledge because your system will keep learning thanks to that feedback, human validation and feedback loop. Also, AI models also can be smart learners, and they can also ask you specifically some data points on which they require themselves human validation because they think that they can learn something new if they present it to you. So these systems, are quite hard to figure out, but they need to be thought through from the start before starting a deployment in production. So I hope that these were a few points of reflection that but I just scratched the surface of all the discussion that we could have. What we are offering here is that to organize a workshop after this few minutes of inspiration to help you figure out on what opportunities you should work on in your hospital, and try to come up with a priority list of AI projects that you could work on, and try to prioritize them in a roadmap. And to do so, what we offer is to start with in the next workshop that is going to come up, a small AI introduction that goes a little bit deeper than what we did here in a few minutes, so that you get the key to understand and how to find opportunities in your hospitals. Then we're going to try with a methodology to diverge and try to think about all the possible cases and opportunities you might think of in your different hospital services. And after, explain you how we can focus and converge on all the ideas that you've got into a selected few ideas that are worth investigate deeper. And this is going to be done in collaboration with hospital experts, but also AI experts, to make sure that at the end of this morning or afternoon, you'll come out with like a roadmap of what to work on. And this could potentially take this form, is that all the IDs that are going to be prioritized will be scored, for example, according to different criterions, like what is the health value that I can create among the customer or patient experience, or how can I improve the health of my patient? How does it support also the business and operation of my hospital? How hard it is, technically speaking, to implement, and are we ready as far as like we're concerned, and regarding the team internally in my hospitals, and are the patient also ready to receive maybe help from those improved system? And so those are all questions that we'll look into deeply compared to the opportunities in the project that you might be interested into.